I hope you had a restful night. Today's program, the last one for the Toni Morrison Fellowship Inauguration. And it's a relaxed one. We'll be having an introductory remark by Professor Philathia Bolton, who is the inaugural Toni Morrison Senior Fellowship here at the Africa Institute. Then we'll be screening the film, The Pieces I Am. Afterwards, we'll be having lunch, and after lunch, we will continue to have a panel discussion, which will be the last for the whole symposium. I'd like to invite to the podium Professor Bolton to give us an introductory remark. Please welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for the welcome and for convening us all again officially for the second day of programming. I am Dr. Philathia Bolton, the first recipient of this prestigious senior fellowship here at the African Institute and Global Studies University. I'm most honored to have received the opportunity to focus on research and writing afforded by this fellowship and other ones like it at the African Institute, to have benefited from the warmth, generosity, and collegiality of the scholars here at the African Institute. And so I say good morning with so much gratitude in my heart. Also, before I introduce the film, would like to just offer a few notes of thanks, since this is the second day and the concluding point of our two-day inaugural events schedule. I would like to thank the individuals who've played a role in organizing this for us, who have traveled here, also especially for the occasion, certain special guests. So a special point of gratitude is to be given to the president of the African Institute and its directors for the vision they have had in instituting this fellowship, to Ford Morrison for granting permission to have the fellowship title after his mother and for being a contributing program participant during the inaugural events, to the musicians who blessed us and moved us with their musical talents yesterday, thank you. And to the administrative staff and support teams at the African Institute for lending careful attention to each detail, for providing transportation to IT work, securing program bags and booklets. We say thank you. You are seen. We appreciate you. Program participants, inclusive of moderators, offered rich conversation for us yesterday, and notes of thanks are to be extended to each and every one of them. Also would like to acknowledge many of them sitting on the front row here, distinguished faculty and guests from Spelman College, my alma mater, and the alma mater of who will be my co-panelist later on today, Dr. Rashay Richardson. Thank you for supporting this inauguration. Dr. Beverly Guy-Sheftal, Dr. Cynthia Spence. Finally, thank you, each and every one of you sitting in the audience today, and some of you who are joining with us virtually, for coming here and for supporting the inauguration of the Toni Morrison Senior Fellowship. Today, as we continue the inaugural events with a screening of The Pieces I Am, which will be followed by a panel discussion on the work and life of Toni Morrison by Richardson and myself after we return from lunch, we will get a glimpse of her life and her work with specific biographical attention to how she came into who we know now as this formidable literary icon. The Pieces I Am, a Magnolia Pictures production, debuted in 2019 with Timothy Greenfield Sanders as its director and a production team that included Sandra Guzman, Chad Thompson, Joanna Giebelhaus, Jackie Sanchez, Graham Willoughby, Leon Coltrane, and Tommy Walker. Also notably, it featured work by African American composer and artist Catherine Bostic. She scored the film and became recognized for High Above the Water, the end title song she wrote and performed. It received recognition at the 2020 Oscars, being shortlisted for Best Original Song category. My first encounter with the documentary, The Pieces I Am, came by way of Bostic's work. I had been invited by one of my aunts and a family friend to hear the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra perform. At the time, they were featuring Broadway hits, but it was Black History Month, so a couple of selections were on theme. Most significantly was Bostic's song from The Pieces I Am. At the end of the program, select images and clips from the documentary appeared on the screen that rolled down from the stage's ceiling in a room that had been darkened. The orchestra played her music as we watched scenes from Pieces I Am, with the concluding part being Toni Morrison's reflection on her awareness of readers, unseen to her, but her hope that there would be a connection that she had with these individuals as they went into the storytelling experience. When the lights came up and the music stopped, I was moved and I was with tears. I had tears. I was not quite prepared to see that, and the music just deepened and enriched the experience for me. Sandra Guzman, who collaborated on this project, wrote a piece after Toni Morrison passed, published in Audubon magazine entitled Remembering Toni Morrison, The Bird Whisperer. And what she said as she reflected on visiting Toni Morrison and returning to her works was, quote, "I first met Morrison in the wondrous place where writers and readers connect," end quote. She would go on to state that as both she and Morrison moved away from reflecting on birds and their general love for nature into thinking more so about storytelling, she began, Guzman, to reflect on the significance of Toni Morrison's stories for her personally as she returned to reading Morrison when Guzman was in a place of transition away from people who were most familiar to her, disconnected from old friends, trying to acclimate, she said, in a new city where she became aware that she was, quote, "a stranger in a village, a brown girl in a white town," end quote. At the conclusion of Guzman's return to Morrison's novels, something Black arts poet Sonia Sanchez suggests in the film we will watch, we all should do again, which is coming back to Morrison's work after the passage of time, after a few years have passed. We will see what the stories reveal once more to us. Guzman said concerning such a return to these types of stories, quote, "Morrison showed me the sweetness of loving thick, the meaning of sovereignty, and the glory and grace of root women, ancestors, and Black cultures everywhere. I saw the perils of life for Black women, and particularly the dangers of the white and male gaze and its lethal effects. Toni showed me a way to understand the past, how to consider choosing what is useful and reject what isn't, so that I can live in the present, liberated from racialized neurosis," end quote. Guzman's story is one of several that reveal the ways in which Morrison's life work, the work she did as a social critic, theorist, essayist, activist, creative writer, proved deeply consequential in shaping how individuals saw themselves, their pasts, and their various communities in which they located. This documentary that we're about to watch provides context for such stories, offering a biographical look into Toni Morrison's life that affords insight into her rhetorical aim and political convictions. The film also lends attention to the national and global terrains she traversed as editor and writer, her awareness of the ways in which she was positioned based on certain categories of identity, and how her growing acclaim exposed contested spaces related to issues of access and legitimacy within the literary world. Foremost, however, is the primacy the reader receives in this story about Toni Morrison. The inception of her own story began with a love for reading. The film carries this theme as a gravitational pull from the beginning through to the end, as we are invited to imagine what stories may do for all of us. And now, for your viewing pleasure and consideration, I present to you The Pieces I Am. Thank you.